Hi, I am just making a quick video about this painting so I can just tell you a little bit about it. Um, the idea came from my sister requested I design her a forearm tattoo that tied into our heritage and our family in 2021. I agreed to do it. It was a really super cool idea, and it took a couple years of just stating the idea to really get it concrete. And here's what came out of that. So this video I'm gonna is basically gonna be two parts. One, the first part just explaining what the image is, what it's about, what some of the references and some of the inspiration I drew from inspiration from which I drew. And the second part will talk a little bit about the technical aspects of creating the stencil and stencil paintings in general. Okay, so the painting itself, I call it Turquoise and Corn, in reference to the images, the two images you see in the center of the painting. And the painting itself is basically inspired by two styles of Navajo art. One, I took inspiration from a style of sand painting that is very common that you'll see in the Southwest. And I'll explain the details of that. And the second inspiration was from Navajo textile work or weaving work, and mainly from a rug that my mother made while she was still alive. So the painting itself, the central image is a reference to Textile, or the southernmost mountain in that Navajo homeland, also known as Mount Taylor or Turquoise Mountain. So I took design cues from this rug that my mother made while she was alive. It's a traditional kind of pattern style, but not done in the traditional way, although she did do traditional loom weaving. This one was a different textile style. If you see here in the center of the design, these triangle patterns, I borrowed from that to create, if you can see, the negative image within the mountain. The gray area of the rug is mimicked here in this turquoise negative space. In this final version of the rug, I also cut out the corners just because I thought it looked cool. So it doesn't connect to make what you would see in the rug. The black space isn't complete, but I just thought it looked neat, so I left that out. You can also see here in the rug the cream color triangles. I mimicked those here in the lower part of the design, which you can see here. And then these positive negative stair step shapes, I borrowed the red color to make that border around the lower part of the mountain. So I stole that from my mother's work, and I borrowed from that rug on a lot of other designs. The overall image is of, like I said, the boy with one piece of corn, of turquoise, and the girl with one piece of corn. Those two deities are from our culture, are the deities that reside in Mount Taylor, and that comes from the Navajo creation story, the Navajo, and they are a symbol of the male, a symbol of security and strength, and the woman a symbol of plenty and of good fortune. And it also shows that when we arrived at this part of the country from our long trek from Alaska, we were very scarce of resources. So this is a very hopeful symbol to my people, and they reside there at Mount Taylor, which is where I grew up. You'll notice in the images themselves a couple design elements that I stole from traditional sand painting. One, in the sand painting style, the woman always has a round head and the male always has a square head. No reference to Minecraft, not a relative of Steve. but that's something that you'll notice in traditional sand painting. Also, the rainbow that covers the foreground. This is it's depicted in blue and red, usually a duality of male and female. What that is a reference to. On the left hand of the panel, you'll see the dark cloud with the jagged lines, also known as male rain with lightning, thunder and lightning. And on the right hand side of the panel, you'll see a cloud depicted with straight lines down, or female rain, soft rain, or rain with no lightning. Those are design elements you'll often see in Navajo sand painting. The creation story talks about, kind of make this a shorter version of that. In the creation story, the hero siblings, hero brothers, were sent on a quest to get their father to recognize them. It's a long story, but I will say in that, the story kind of winds up at Mount Taylor, where the hero brothers kill the alien monster. The alien monster, his blood was flowing out of this volcanic mountain, Mount Taylor, and was going to consume the world, but the world was saved by the little tiny humble pond of a lake in this part of New Mexico known as Blue Water Lake. So that's depicted here in the shadow of the mountain. The black is to symbolize the lava that covers this region of the country, and the red, I think, also is a nice cue to the volcano and the lava. When I do paintings, this is a stencil, acrylic stencil painting. Usually I create the concept, start testing out the technique, and then as I could get a couple of paintings out of those stencils. This painting itself has I created 3 versions. The original one for my sister. I painted another one. I wasn't sure what to do with it, but I ended up giving it to my brother, and this is the final version. But usually what happens when I'm creating paintings is each version I add a little bit, or I change a little thing, I try a different technique. So in the original image that I gave with my sister, there's no deer on the left side of the panel at all. But in the second version, I added this. It's a reference to another Navajo story called The Deer Hunter Way. And that story is really important to my people. What it does is somewhat explain the Navajo thinking of our interconnectedness with other beings. In that story, there is it's a little hard to explain for, if you're not Navajo, but there's essentially a deer hunter, a male, a female hunting deers. The deer is also the people. The deer is also a deity. The people are interchangeable between the hunter, the deer, the animal, the human, the god. So this image, I think, is my way to depict that. Again, the red and the blue, a lightning bolt from heaven to show the divine, the cue to the divine. On this side of the panel, this was originally in there, but I'll just show that we got the corn, symbol of the corn plant, coming from the right side of the female figure. The other thing I would point out, or the last thing I would point out really about this part of the design, I created here, if you look very closely, there's a silver line that goes from the center of the drawing or the painting, does some interesting stuff, and exit from the right. This is a reference to what is often called the spirit line in Navajo weaving works, and it is said that it's an intentional imperfection made by the weaver to allow their spirit to escape or to let go of the piece when it's completed. So I included that reference into the painting. So you might be looking at this big old image and asking yourself, how in the heck could that possibly be a tattoo? I get that. It's supposed to be a 4-arm piece, so much smaller than this, obviously. But it's somewhat designed to have the central images kind of in the center of the forearm, with this being somewhere closer to the hand. I'm sorry, I'm pointing with my right part of my claw here. This part's supposed to be closer to the hand, and maybe the forearm coming like this, and then excluding some elements like the clouds and the rainbow probably. So that was the original design. So that's what the painting is about. And if that's all you wanted to know, you can stop watching now. For folks that are curious about stencil artwork, stencil painting, or other stencil artists, I'll point out, just give you some basic concepts of how this works. With a bigger piece like this, I tend to kind of break it into sections. So if you imagine this being a 3D image, and more or less there's a background and a foreground, and that's more or less the way I went about making this painting. First, the sky elements, you'll see there's a gradient from darker to lighter. I painted the sky first, marked the painting of where the horizon would be. You can see here some details like the white paint that gives a sense of light coming from behind the mountain or from below the horizon. That was painted in with the sky. And then behind that, came after that, I painted the central figures, the boy with one piece of turquoise and the girl with one piece of corn. I painted them in, and the mountain wasn't there, but they actually go, those elements actually go below that horizon. And then I painted in another component with a corn plant, so I painted that in because it was a different color. I painted in the deer, and then I added, I did the clouds. This cloud, this is a later adaptation for this final version. I added, silver leaf or metallic paper in the cloud itself. This is a new detail. And then, so once I was complete, the top component of the painting was done. Then the next layer was the mountain and the design around the mountain. But before I painted the mountain, I painted the ground behind the mountain. So in this version, you might notice, and only in this version, there's these darts. These look really cool. I really like them. And how I created that actually was just clearing the nozzle of the spray can upside down on the paper. So I got these cool like arrow effects into the design. And then I added the mountain. The final part is the design below the mountain. So I added layers. I think this whole painting is probably about 16 or 17 layers. And yeah, so it's a lot of work, a lot of fun, and that's how I did it. Thanks for watching.